Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So, as you know, tomorrow, and as you may see this, you're going to see this on Friday, today at 2 o'clock, Lori Vallow has another bail reduction hearing. And I think this is number 3 or 4. I'm not sure. I've completely lost track between extradition hearings and bail reduction hearings. I think this is number 4, but I could be wrong. Could be number 3. So tomorrow, there are a possible 49 witnesses that the state and the defense have already agreed upon could possibly be called in this case. The defense gets one witness and the state gets one witness. And they are going to be mainly character witnesses or witnesses to tell the judge, to inform the judge why Lori should be released on bail. Now, who's going to be called? On that list, there are a lot of people who really shouldn't be called for the defense. I can't see, why Lori would want to call a medical doctor. I can't see why Lori would want to call a detective. But these are the preliminary, witnesses that they have both agreed upon will possibly be called. And yes, Chad Daybell is on that list of possible witnesses. Would Lori want to call Chad? Maybe, in her defense, that Mr. Means may want to call him to say, look, I've already have a place for her to be, released on bail too. I have a home in Salem, Idaho. She will be there in that home, sleeping in the same bed that my dearly departed wife used to sleep in. Because she doesn't have the Rexburg townhome anymore, so that ain't going to be a place that she's going to be released to. And the state has an equal opportunity to call one witness, and they will most likely call a detective, someone who has investigated Lori's previous behavior and what her lack of caring about anything that the court system has to say, and any order that the court has ever passed down upon her. Custody agreement, divorce, it didn't matter. She just doesn't care. She's always looked at herself as being above it all. Go back through her history from 1995 and forward. She has not cared about anything the court system has ever said. She's always stuck her nose up to the court system. It repeated. It's well documented every time that she has been in a court proceedings. She has just said, I'm not going to care. So there are 5 things that the defense is most likely going to argue, and there are 5 things that the state of Idaho is going to argue, most likely on both ends. The defense, we'll start with them first. Mr. Means, Lori's attorney, is going to argue that her being in jail is at risk to her life because of COVID-19. We all know, and if you don't know it now, you should know it. Jails and prisons are basically petri dishes, and that is a fact. You can't argue that. The flu breaks out in a jail, everybody's going to get the flu. In a jail or a prison, if COVID comes into there, it's going to run like wildfire before anybody ever gets a chance to get a hold of it. And we've seen it in state prisons, we've seen it in county jails, all over, just about every state in the nation. Now, there has not been a single person arrested with COVID-19 in the Rexburg County Jail in the actual housing unit that Lori is in. It doesn't mean that somebody won't come in the intermediate period of time with COVID. So they're going to argue that it's a risk for her welfare and her health to be there because of COVID. The second thing the defense is going to argue is unable to communicate effectively with legal counsel. That the rules that they have put in place because of COVID make it so her and her attorney can't be in the same room, that they have to communicate by phone through plexiglass, and they have to look at each other and communicate that way. It's not just her. It's every inmate, male and female, right now has to do the same thing. But they're going to argue that anyways. The next thing, number 3, that they're going to argue is that it's a violation of her rights because of the recording that happened mistakenly at the jail. That the private privileged conversation between her and her attorney has been recorded before, and that it may happen again, and that this is why she needs to be released so she can be effective and have private communication with just her attorney. This is every one of our constitutional rights, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just her. So please understand that. Next thing that they're going to argue, number 4, is it's unconstitutional. Again, Idaho state constitution and the federal government, our constitution as a nation, is unconstitutional for her to be held on such an excessive bail amount. You have the right to have a fair bail hearing and a bail amount that is not burdensome on you to be released. If you get picked up for jaywalking, they can't hold you on $1 million bond, keep you in jail, and then you owe more money getting out than the actual charge would have ever occurred. They're going to argue that. You can bet that is going to happen at some point. He's going to argue some portion of the constitutional rights. Number 5, he's going to say that Lori has been threatened, that she needs to be released because of physical threats of violence towards her. Has any threat been registered? No. But he could say that, and then the state would have to prove that nothing has ever been said or done. And he's going to argue it. He's going to throw everything out there that he can to try to get her out of jail. That's what attorneys do for their clients. If they don't, you might want to find a new attorney, and that's for everybody and anybody out there. He's going to argue that everything, anything and everything. The state brings up one thing, they're going to counter it. State brings up another, they're going to counter it. And it's going to go back and forth and back and forth. The state of Idaho, they're up next. The 5 things that they are going to argue for sure tomorrow at some point. 1, Lori is still in violation of the child welfare agreement to produce JJ for the state. And now, in effect, basically, Tylee as well. But they don't have an actual order for that. But she has not shown up with the kids or told them where the kids are. So she's still in violation of that, child welfare, investigation. She's still in violation of it. She could tell them right now, well, the kids are here and here, and they would go in and investigate it, and she would then definitely get a lower bail amount, but she'd still be facing the charges either way because they're past tense. What she's done in the past for the welfare of JJ and for Tylee, now in the past, not going forward, what she's done in the past. Both those felonies are past tense. 2, she's a threat to the public. Lori out there on the streets is a threat to, well, first off, any man who comes close to her. That would be her attorney, possibly. That would definitely be, she is a threat to the welfare of Chad. And because what has happened to every one of her ex-husbands? They're all dead. There isn't a single one that's alive, except for her first husband, which we don't know anything about. But they're all dead. They're gone. Any man who's come close to Lori is died. I mean, suspicious circumstances or not. Her brother's dead. Her last two ex-husbands are dead. Someone tried to kill Tammy, who was in the way of her getting to the next man in her life. So they're going to argue that. Number 3, and the biggest one of them all, she's a flight risk. Lori is a flight risk. In the past, going back to the marriage with Joseph Ryan, every time the courts said, okay, you will be here on this day, and for the next custody portion of visitation, whatever agreement, and we'll be here to talk about that in court. She just didn't show up, or she showed up and she was late and didn't care. Going forward to the next husband after Joseph Ryan, going to Vallow, when he was trying to go through the divorce with her, she didn't care. She didn't show up, and then eventually she figured, he's better off dead because I can get more that way. But little did she know. And then the child custody, the state's welfare check on JJ. She took off. Where'd she go for 2 weeks? We don't know. But she eventually ended up in Hawaii. She's a flight risk. That's number 3. Number 4. She is a risk to witnesses and to the children. If the children are alive and they are out there, she has not only the means to actually hurt them or hurt a witness, but she also has the means to communicate with someone else to do it. That is a big one. She has the ability, once she's out of jail, to either do it herself or to have somebody else that she has coerced into doing her bidding for her. We all know that it was most likely Alex who was doing her bidding before. But has she convinced somebody else to start doing her bidding for her? No, it's not Chad. That turtle man looks like he's so helpless. But there might be another person out there that she is convinced to tamper with witnesses, get rid of witnesses who may, be called to testify against her, or, finish the kids off if they are alive. Number 5. She has shown a complete lack of respect to every single court and every single court order that has ever been handed down against her. Well, she sees them all as against her, but even if they were in the benefit of the children in her life, she's cared nothing about anything that they've ever had to say. So the state is going to argue those 5 things. Who will the state most likely call? Most likely a detective. Who will the defense most likely call? It's going to have to be either Melania Gibbs, or it's going to have to be someone who is a character witness who has bought into her actual belief system. That's who they're going to call. And if they don't call that, they're going to call Chad, just to be able to say, look, she has a place to go. Here's the address. This is what we are going to do. And, to make sure she shows up for court. And yeah, if she is released, she will have to wear an ankle monitoring bracelet. But, we've all seen stories on TV about people who've cut the bracelets off and then taped them to a dog or a cat, so that it keeps on moving around. Well, she could do that too. And they both believe that the world is going to end in July. So they want her out. And they're going to do just about anything to get her out. The defense is going to throw the kitchen sink at this to try to get her out. And they're going to do everything they can, and they're not going to leave any stone unturned, the defense. And the state of Idaho is going to do everything they can to keep her in jail, if not increase the bail. Why would they not want to argue that? So that's what's going to happen tomorrow in the hearing. Now I'd like to address a couple additional things. One, the GoFundMe account that was set up, that supposedly was set up by Chad Daybell, his attorney released a statement saying that Chad did not set up that GoFundMe. That GoFundMe account that was trying to raise $1 million for legal defense for Chad Daybell has been closed down. It only raised about $10 before it got closed. And that $10 was refunded back to the person who donated it. I did not see who actually donated it. In the screenshot that I have of that, it was that $10 donation hadn't come in yet. But his attorney has confirmed that GoFundMe was not set up by Chad. Next, in my previous video that I did on the timeline between 1990 and 2020 for Lori and Chad, I made a mistake. I made a mistake by looking at my notes. I was supposed to write down 2012, and I wrote down 2008 in my notes. I know it's a mistake. JJ wasn't born in 2008, and I made that mistake. I humbly sit before you today and in this video to tell you and everybody out there that I am human, I am flawed, and I made a mistake. Because of one mistake doesn't discard 2.5 months of research and work that me and Samantha put in on that video. Yes, Samantha did a very large portion of it because I came down with COVID-19. I wasn't able to do my part. In the end, I did everything I could, but then I made one mistake. And that one mistake was the date of the adoption of JJ. And for that, I'm sorry. And because of one error, it doesn't mean that everything else was wrong. You can say whatever you want, believe whatever you want. But I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. And I hope that everyone out there will find a way to forgive me for reading my notes incorrectly and reporting on that error. Now, let's go forward and enjoy our weekend and try to stay safe. Please keep your spirits up because these are some strange, strange times. And I'm sure that Court TV and a lot of other channels will be reporting on Lori live from the Rexburg, jail and courthouse there to show anything and everything that they can. I will not have another video on Lori Vallow until next week. Why? Because just because Court TV says it doesn't mean it's true. They live on hype. Media, mainstream media, tries to pitch one side of an agenda and the other side pitches another side. When it comes to everything in court, COVID, everything, you can't rely on just one source. I can't rely on one source when it comes to telling you and making these videos on Lori Vallow. I need to check them. So, next video won't come until next week. And I'm sorry. Stay safe out there. And thank you for joining me today on my own private beach.